Hello students, in this video I will go through some exercises on how to find midpoints and distance between two endpoints. Let's take a look. So the first question here, or the first set of questions, the instruction says to find the midpoint of each line segment. I'm going to go through the even questions here as I usually assign odd questions for you guys to work on. They're all the same. So if you go through looking at these examples that I go through as models, you can generally get the idea of how to solve those odd questions. Question number 2. So to find a midpoint, right, you can do one of two things. You can either count, or you can try to solve this algebraically. Looking at this, okay, I can already get a sense of what the where the midpoint is. Looking at this, the technical term of what I'm doing is I'm breaking up this line segment into its components. There's a vertical component and then there's a horizontal component. The vertical component, as you can see here, we're going down by how much? We're going down by 5, right? And then we're going to go over by 2. So this is 5 and 2. So if you find the middle of each one of these, okay, you can find a midpoint. So again, 5 and 2, the middle of that would be 1, right? So middle of 2 is 1, and middle of 5 is 2.5. This right here would be our midpoint, right? So that's visually, okay, that should make sense. So again, you are finding the average, in other words, okay, of where of what the two coordinates are. So I'm looking at coordinates -3, -1/2, right? So alternatively, okay, if you didn't do that if you did not do this graphically or visually, okay, you can also do the following. You can also get the coordinates here. This is -4, 2, and this guy over here is -2, -3. You can add up all the x's and add up all the y's and divide by 2. So this is an alternative way of doing this. And honestly, I don't have one preference over the other. Okay, so if you add -4 and -2, whoops, and divide by 2, and then do the same thing with the y coordinates, 2 and -3, divide by 2, you'll end up in the same place. -4 plus -2 is -6. -6 divided by 2 is -3. 2 plus -3 is -1. -1 over 2 is -1/2. So you see here we actually end up in the same exact location. Same final answer. Let's take a look at question number 4. And so this guy right here is -5, 0. And over here this is -2, -5. To find the average or find the midpoint, I will add together -5 and -2, divide by 2, add together 0 and -5, and divide by 2. I end up with -7/2, -5/2. You can leave your answer like this, or this is if you really want to, you can convert this into a decimal. Either way, okay, both are acceptable answers as a fraction or as a decimal. And, there are benefits of doing this algebraically, because as you can see here, the midpoint lies somewhere in the middle there, and it's harder to tell. Graphically, okay, it has its limitations. Okay, so we're going to find out what the midpoints are. It says find a midpoint of the line segments with the given endpoints. So this is honestly even easier, because all you got to do is, again, apply the midpoint formula here. So again, if this is x1, y1, x2, y2, I apply the midpoint formula, I end up with 0 plus -6 over 2, -9 plus 2 over 2. And what is that? This is equivalent to -3, -7/2. Okay. I want to add together 4/9 and 3 and 5/9. And if I do this, okay, if I were to add this stuff together, okay, I need to create common denominators. So this is 4/9 plus, I see here this there already is a common denominator, but I got to convert this into a mixed, not from a mixed number, but into an improper fraction. 3 times 9 is 27. 27 plus 5, that's 32. Okay, divide by 2. And -3, but I see here I have a denominator of 7, so -3 to create a common denominator, this becomes -21/7 plus -13/7, all divided by 2. And if I add this guy right here, 4 plus 32, isn't that 36? 36 over 9, isn't that 4? And then 4 divided by 2 is 2. -21 and -13, that gives me -34. So I get -34 over 7. Divide by 2, I get -34 over 14. And -34 over 14, what does that reduce to? That reduces to -17 over 7. So my final answer is 2 comma -17/7. That's my final answer. Okay, and the next one here is really similar. I add 2.8 and 7.7. I end up with, what is that? 10.5. Divide by 2. -6.5 and -6.7. Add those together. These guys together. So that's -13.2. Divide by 2. So what does my final answer then become? This becomes 5.25 and 6.1, right? No. Negative 6. Negative, let's see here, whoops, 13.2 divided by 2, I don't know why I'm struggling over that, 6.6 of course, so it becomes -6.6, there you go. Alright, next it says find the distance between each pair of points. So to find the distance, I don't encourage you using the distance formula, although you certainly can. But this is just a Pythagorean theorem situation, right? And the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where the components of the line segment are your legs of the right triangle. So 1 squared plus 2 squared will equal to the segment squared. This will be 1 plus 4 is equal to c squared, or c is equal to square root of 5. Alright, find the other endpoint of the line segment with the given endpoint and the given midpoint. Okay, this one slightly more confusing just because here you're not given the endpoints and asked to find the midpoint. You're given the midpoint and one other endpoint, and you're asked to find the other endpoint. Alright, so we're going to try to approach this logically as well as trying to approach this algebraically, okay? So you can certainly try to graph this out, okay? And if you do, I will actually take advantage of maybe this graph up here. And so I'm going to take this and I want to do this to it. I want to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of that. so it's no longer there. Okay. And what I want to do, okay, is I want to show you that we can do this, you know, logically, and then we can try to do this algebraically. And I promise you, okay, once you understand this logically, then the algebra will be that much easier. Okay, so 0, 2 is over here, and -3, -4 is located over here. So wait a minute. If 0, 2, if the endpoint is over here, if the midpoint rather, this is the midpoint right here, is right there, and this is the one of the endpoint, let's say this is A, and you need to find out the other point B, where would point B be located? Right? It would be located on the other side. It would be like somewhere up here, in other words, right? So graphically, okay, it should make sense on how you're going to do this. So if you think about this, right, you're moving over 3, and then you're going up how much? So going 2, 4, 6, you're going up 6. So that means from the midpoint, you're going to do the same thing, right? You're going to go 3 over and then up 6. So in other words, the other endpoint is going to be +3 from 0 and +6 from 2. And if you do this, then you'll end up with 3, 8. So the other endpoint will be 3, 8. And that makes sense, okay? And the solution, or the placement of where I believe the answer would have been if the graph was bigger, okay, would have been right there. So how do we go about this algebraically then, right? So algebraically, okay, what you can do is you can call this, let's say, x1, y1, right? And you're trying to solve for x2, y2, let's say. So according to the formula, right, the midpoint formula, it was x1 plus x2 divide by 2 and y1 plus y2 divide by 2. You can just directly substitute in. I know what x1 is. That's -3. Do I know what x2 is? I don't know what x2 is. And I want to do the same thing with the y's, right? -4 plus y1, or y2, over 2. And I know that these will equal to 0, 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to systematically try to solve for what x and y are by doing the following. I know that -3 plus x2 is equal to 0. I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. I end up with -3 plus x2 is equal to 0. And add 3 from both sides. I end up with x2 is equal to 3. I want to do the same thing, okay, with the y's. So I know that -4 plus y2 is equal, or divided by 2, is equal to 2. If I multiply both sides by 2, I end up with -4 plus y2 is equal to 8. I'm sorry, is equal to 4. And then I'm going to add 4 to both sides. I end up with y2 is equal to 8. So you see how we end up in the same place? And actually, I'm going to take this approach with the question number 16 here. So for question 16, what we do is we're going to add, again, I'm going to take -1 plus x divided by 2, and 9 plus y divided by 2, and I recognize that this should equal to 4, -3. So therefore I can say -1 plus x divided by 2 is equal to 4, and 9 plus y divided by 2 is equal to -3. Multiply both sides by 2. -1 plus x is equal to 8. Add 1 to both sides, end up with x is equal to 9. Do the same thing with the y coordinate. Multiply both sides by 2. 9 plus y is equal to -6. Subtract 9 from both sides, I end up with y is equal to -15. Or in other words, the coordinates are 9, comma, negative 15. There you have it. Okay. Find a distance between each pair of points. Okay, so here we're sort of bubbled into using the distance formula, and that's okay. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. If I were to apply the distance formula here, this is for question number 18, I would end up with square root of negative 2 minus negative 4 squared, negative 1 minus negative 7 squared. I end up with, what is this? Square root of negative 2 plus 4, which is just 2 squared, and negative 1 minus negative 7, that ends up being just 6 squared. So 2 squared is 4, 6 squared is 36, I end up with square root of 40. And 4 is a perfect square, so it ends up being 2 square root of 10. Alright, number 20. 3/8 and 1 3/8. So this is going to be 3/8 minus 1 3/8. So I want to convert that into an improper fraction. So that would be minus 11/8. 4 and 5/6 is 29/6. Whoops. Minus negative 9/8 quantity squared. Okay. So this part here looks a little annoying because I got to create common denominators and I got to reduce. So 29/6 plus 9/8. Oh boy. So that means I got to multiply. I got to find the lowest common denominator, right? Since I'm dealing with 6 and 8, the LCD would therefore be 24, right? So I got to multiply 29/6 by 4 over 4 and 9/8 by 3 over 3. So if I do that, I'll end up with, I want to do this side first here. So this is going to be 4 times 29, what would that be? So that's 126, right? 4 times 29, yeah, no, it's 116. Right? No. I want to double check that. So 29 times 4. Whoops. 116. All over 24. And then plus 3 times 9 is 27 over 24. Quantity squared. Plus 3 minus 11, that would be 8 over 8. So that would be 1. 1 squared. So if I add together 116 and 127, I get 116 plus 27. It's 143. Divide that by 24. I end up with this fraction here. I'll show you a little neat trick here. If I square this, because that's what I ended up doing, right? I end up with 35.5, blah, 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 blah. There's a neat little function here. If you press math, go over to numbers. No, I take that back. If you press math, and the first option there, see frac, it turns that decimal, which is a rational number, into a fraction. So you get this. Okay? And honestly, for this problem here, it's that annoying. So I'm just going to, here, add 1. And then I want to take the square root. So 6 and 1/24 is the final answer. Okay.